After 4 years, the Overwatch World Cup made its grand return to BlizzCon. To make up for all the years without it, the Overwatch gods rewarded us with quite possibly the greatest Overwatch esports tournament ever. What we witnessed in World Cup 2023 is unprecedented. With such an amazing event now in the history books, a debriefing is a must. Coming into the week, 16 teams battled it out in the group stage, and only 8 got the opportunity to advance to the final. And for the most part, the teams you'd expect to make it out of groups were able to. Groups B and C were very standard. China, Great Britain, and Canada cruised through the groups. Additionally, Spain continued their BlizzCon miracle run by taking down a tough Thailand team and even giving China a decent run for their money. But where the craziness really takes form, in what ultimately decide the future of the entire tournament, was in Groups A and D. The teams you'd expect to make it through were ultimately able to, but it didn't go how you'd think it would. Saudi Arabia, first and foremost, curb-stomped the US. In their first obstacle to overcome in this tournament, the EU Contenders champions made the US look like a bunch of frauds, and they did so without the typical flyer cheese that most people criticize them for. They were more confident, and they were better in the mirror match. They were the ones setting the tempo, and they were the ones playing with urgency. While Saudi Arabia was playing to win, the US were playing not to lose. The final result was a 2-0 victory over America in first place in Group D. Meanwhile, the United States showed some early signs that their teamwork and understanding of this meta was not where it should have been. And for a team of OWL players, it didn't really feel like it. Their group performance was way more of a struggle than it really should have been. Dropping this one so badly, along with a map to France, and benching Kaluj in a Sigma meta was all a very bad sign and a foreshadowing of what was to come. The United States had so many issues, and the reward for playing unacceptably bad would be getting on the same side of the bracket as Korea and China. Yikes. They made it through the groups, but at what cost? Anyway, the other surprise of the groups came in Group A. Finland thus far had shown exceptional skill, but I don't think anybody expected them to push Korea to their limit, cause damn, we almost had Finland snag the top seed. Korea, aka the 2022 Overwatch League champions, plus Lip, had to fight tooth and nail. The unstoppable gods of Overwatch, the heart and soul of this esport, with perhaps their most loaded roster to date. Yeah, once again, not a great sign. Not winning convincingly that early on is a surefire sign that something is wrong. Vestola and Sana were doing their best someone in merit impression. You could tell that Finland were not going to go down very easily. On Samoa, they were playing with so much confidence, even chasing Korea all the way to spawn. In Circuit Royale, I mean, they literally full held Korea. And considering they at one point had a 2-0 lead on New Junk City, Korea basically hit their limit before the tournament even started. But even so, at least for now, they persevered to set up our final 8, and the bracket they gave us on paper seemed really bad. Just knowing the powers of Korea and China, it felt like a crime to put them on the same side of the bracket. It felt like a robbery of a gold medal match. But in hindsight, this bracket worked out in the best way possible. We still would get our destined banger between Korea and China, but it also set up the other side of the bracket to give us 4 awesome underdogs in one section that could all make a run at the finals. But it wasn't always sunshine and rainbows. It only worked out because of Day 2. Day 1 was atrocious. They were all blowouts, with the only one that was kind of interesting being Canada versus Korea, because Korea actually dropped a map. They really shouldn't have, they kind of threw it, but regardless, they showed more weakness. That Finland match was perhaps more of an indicator than initially thought. Oh, and shout out to Blizzard for the brilliant idea of cutting away from the final map of that series for the opening ceremony of BlizzCon. Totally not a bad idea that would piss off fans. Nope, definitely not. But what's a Blizzard event without a fumble, am I right? Aside from that, the rest of the first round wasn't even worth watching back. It was all about weeding out the pretenders from the contenders. And just because I know a bunch of my audience is US based, I gotta get this over with. The US were clearly screwed the moment that they showed weakness in the groups, and against China, the literal roster that got third in OWL Season 6, they truly stood no chance. Now to be fair, maps 1 and 3 at least showed some fight. Sugar-Free tried his absolute best to drag this US team kicking and screaming, but for every big play that he made, Gushue and Leave countered. Anytime Lenny opened up this game, those two were winning 3v5s. Disgusting stuff, I mean. The World Cup is where these two originally made names for themselves back in 2018, and they brought that energy back with their Genji Dune tandem that really was too much for the US. To all my fellow Americans watching this, we have to face the music. Kaluj played way under standard in a Sigma meta, he really didn't show up, and he got benched for Super. On top of it, the main support situation was not ideal, nor was their teamwork. This is literally a team of OWL players. A bunch of these guys have played together before, but based on the gameplay, you never would have guessed that. It's super disappointing, but at the end of the day, disappointment in the World Cup is nothing new. Outside of 2019, they've been a first-round exit every single year. Honestly, I should have known better than to say they'd get bronze. As far as I'm concerned, they were at best the number 5 team in this bracket. People are gonna complain about being in the loaded side of the bracket, but it's no excuse. They did this to themselves, and this placement is deserved. And the same could be said for Spain and Great Britain. Spain were good, but obviously not good enough to get to the semis, and GBR decided to put their top Mei player in the world in Genji jail while avoiding Sigma at all cost. Plus, Finland and KSA were obviously at a way higher level, so no surprises. So at this point, we had nothing but blowouts, and China versus Korea in the semi-finals before the gold match. A lot of us were thinking things were gonna get rough, but also, a bunch of you told me I need to have more faith. This isn't like other years. It's time to stop living in the past, and I apologize for not listening to you. I'm an idiot, because what we got in Day 2 of BlizzCon may go down as the best individual day of Overwatch esports ever. Korea versus China delivered, as you'd expect. That was a given. They're the god countries with OWL talent from top to bottom, but what I wasn't anticipating was 4 straight map 5s, Korea walking away with no medals, and Saudi Arabia reverse sweeping China to win the gold. The Overwatch gods decided enough is enough. It's been 4 years since the World Cup. Time to reward our patience and let us eat good. China versus Korea was enough on its own to make us happy. This was a battle and an honest dive mirror with neither team backing down. Peak cinema. But again, the weakness Korea had shown beforehand was not a good sign and something that China could expose. Funny enough, China were like the one team coming into this event beforehand that was even given a chance of beating Korea. And even then it was kind of just like, yeah, maybe they could, but they're still the underdogs. But hey, here they are, toppling Korea in a 5-map banger to dethrone the kings of Overwatch. I mean, my god, what a series between Asia's best. Gushue and Fearless going god mode on Winston, Sparkle going up against Leave and holding his own, Lip versus Shy. But just like when the Spark beat Atlanta Reign 1 month prior, this series came down to Monk playing out of his damn mind. He outdid Fielder, once again, with some unbelievable Ana play. Monk will never, ever be in that conversation for top tier flex support all time, but this dude's Ana in significant tournaments is becoming a thing of legend, and to do it on the World Cup stage makes it all the more special. Clutching this out against their rivals was fantastic to see for China, and it only builds upon their legend. You could tell how much they wanted this. With back-to-back silvers and Chinese Overwatch at a low point, this was their final chance, their last real opportunity to get the gold. And they overcame both teams that denied them previously to get back to that gold medal match. You really can't write up a greater story. It's poetic. As for Korea, yikes. for the second straight World Cup out in the semis. And for the likes of alexyOWL and Fielder, deja vu. I mean, literally a mirror image aside from the reverse sweep. Shy getting the best of Lip in a map 5, Monk looking better than Chio and Fielder in a map 5 loss on Route 66. That's gotta hurt. For Korea, anything less than gold is unacceptable. With the sheer amount of talent they possess, they should never be losing. Other regions have caught up for sure, but they're still the best. Not showing that is disappointing. They went down swinging, I think we can give them credit there. It was probably one of the best World Cup matches ever, but the 2022 OWL champions plus Lip losing this early is absurd. Speaking of absurd, Finland versus KSA in the other semi was almost as good. EMEC's finest showed us exactly why their region is on the rise. Saudi Arabia versus Finland was perhaps the closest match of professional Overwatch I've ever seen. Every single map was a nail-biter. Nothing came easy. It easily could have gone to Finland had like 1 or 2 fights gone differently. And oh boy, you could feel how badly these rivals wanted this. Kortz, Majed, Masa, Vestola, everybody played their hearts out. Both sides were all about the Sigma comps, the complete opposite of China versus Korea. But even so, it was still wild. Early on, KSA had the slight advantage. Their reliance on pick potential from Sojourn and Majed always doing his thing seemed like it would be enough. But after the second map, they changed their strategy and mirrored Finland. And Finland were able to make it a series because of that. They were just the better May Sim team. Plus, Vestola and Masa were having some out-of-body experiences. And for a bit, it seemed as if they might be pulling off the reverse sweep. Slightly more time and extra rounds, plus one of the worst C9s in recent memory by KSA set them up. But again, KSA just had the stronger foothold thanks to their mechanics, so it just didn't matter. When they went back to their tried and true, they were the better team. They held on and were able to cash in on being the favorites from that side of the bracket to make the final. But how about this series, man? What a nail-biter, what an epic rivalry, and what a great moment for both countries. Neither of them have been this relevant before. You'd have to imagine just how amazing that feels. I underestimated both of them coming into this, and I apologize. Y'all are actually super goated. And this point was only further proved in the bronze and gold matches. Both EMEC teams beat arguably the 2 best countries in the world. That's never been done before. Korea didn't even win a medal for crying out loud. That is unheard of. Times are changing, man, and it happened in the best way possible. More bangers that showcase skill from lesser known players. Let's start with Finland versus Korea. They've literally never made it this far before. Finland have boasted incredible players since the dawn of Overwatch esports, but no past talent has ever accomplished this. A bronze medal in the World Cup by defeating South Korea. Keep in mind, this country was a wildcard team. They didn't even get an automatic spot in the qualifiers this summer. And look at them now. Their guys outplayed some of the best players on the planet. I mean, holy crap. Did you see Vestola? He put up a masterclass all week, and when it mattered the most, he outplayed freaking Hanbin, one of the greatest players to touch the game. Definitely the best Sigma player in this World Cup, no question. This Finland team played with conviction. They weren't afraid to take risks, and it's exactly what you're looking for in an underdog if you want to make these upsets possible. That ballsy Ramatra swap, spotting Sparkle when he wanted to go for that Blizzard, outpacing Korea in extra rounds on circuit to close it out. They went for it and they left it all out there. It's super crazy to think about, but from the summer up until now, Finland lost 3 games. 2 bangers to the eventual champion, and 1 to Korea in groups. That's it. This year's Team Finland was something special, and their bronze is very well deserved. As for Korea, well, this might have been the best roster they've ever fielded, and they somehow finished the worst they ever have. That video I made back in the summer aged like milk, and I take the L on that one. Not only were Korea extremely stoppable, but they didn't even get bronze. It's the first time in history that Korea finished outside the top 3. It goes without saying that Korea's long-term dominance in the World Cup is over. It's happened twice in a row now. It's no fluke. You can say whatever you want about the meta or not picking the correct roster, but that doesn't matter. You're Korea. The roster you have is still more than good enough. The truth is, other countries can compete with them. As someone who's been around since the very beginning, it's surreal. For the longest time, nobody could even hold a torch. They were the untouchable gods. They understood the game in ways that nobody else ever could. Their discipline, their skill, being so clutch under pressure, it put everybody else to shame. And that was the case for 3 years, 2016, 2017, 2018. People could barely even take maps, let alone beat them. It took so many years of everybody else playing catch-up to get here. I mean, even after 2019, people questioned the validity of their defeat. But now that it's happened twice, we no longer have to. It's wild to see just how far the esports scene has come. And just think, we only got more proof of that mere hours later with quite possibly the biggest upset in World Cup history. Saudi Arabia, a country that only got into Overwatch seriously a couple of years ago, was able to win the gold medal over China. It is amazing to see just how far they've come. In the last year or so alone, many of their players have made a big career for themselves. They've taken over contenders. Their prominence in Overwatch esports has been on the rise. And now, all of a sudden, they're the kings of the world. A spectacular underdog story. China, a team entirely comprised of an Overwatch League team that came in third just a month ago, was reverse swept by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And you know how they did it? Through composure, through hero swaps, and most importantly, through all 6 of their guys trusting in each other completely and popping off. They prepared for this moment for weeks, if not months, every single day. They practiced so hard, and at the end of the day, sometimes that just means more than pure talent. No days off, that hunger to prove yourself and fight for the honor of your country. China were beating them convincingly for a long time, but once they made the Bastion swap and they got the nerves out of their system, the series flipped and they started to dominate more and more. The Bastion pressure did a great job of keeping Guxue at bay, but also Haku pretty much neutralized Leave, one of China's greatest weapons. His DPS play was amazing, but in the second half of this set, his Genji found no value. Haku saved Sound Barrier for every blade, and China just couldn't do anything. And sometimes they throw on the Nano, so a lot of the time Saudi Arabia was getting a 2-for-1 trade. And from there, Haku's team basically did the rest. China made it interesting en route, as you'd expect from them, but the damage had already been done. They gave KSA life. China are a really good team, but they do have just one style, and KSA happened to figure it out. And once they did, that's all she wrote. China choked this one away. They took care of Korea, they took care of the US, they overcame all of the ghosts of their past. This year, the gold was supposed to be theirs, but like myself and many other fans, China underestimated their foe, and the result? Their 3rd straight silver medal finish. That's like Philly Fusion levels of sad, and with China's relevance with this game fleeting by the day, this might have been their last chance. It's a very sad way to go out, and I feel for those guys, especially Guxue. He was so good this tournament, and this is now a 3rd time in a row. But hey, if it's worth anything, one undeniable truth is that China are one of the best regions out there. Getting to the World Cup final 3 times is not easy. Being on the same level of Korea, and all their recent Overwatch League accomplishments are worthy of praise. China has produced some of the best talent and the best teams we'll ever know. And regardless of where that legacy goes from here, we'll never forget. As for Saudi Arabia, there's only one thing left to say. Congrats on winning the World Cup! You just showed how much hard work really can pay off. You wanted this badly. You wanted to give your fans something they deserve for supporting you, and you were able to deliver. I mean, some of your guys traveled over 18 hours just to support you at BlizzCon. And with that kind of stuff, it really goes into perspective to show you just how big Saudi Arabian Overwatch is getting. And this really just might be the beginning. They only recently rose to relevance. There's still so much potential for that to continue into whatever comes next. As for this run, they literally did not lose. Not a single time. From qualifiers through BlizzCon, they went undefeated. And you can't question the validity. They beat some damn good countries. Honestly, the only team they didn't get a crack at was Korea, and that's just because of the positioning with the bracket. For this event, they were unquestionably the best team, and I give them a lot of credit for working at it so much. It's pretty rare to see this kind of drive, especially because World Cup just isn't as serious as some of the other things. Majed was as godly as ever on Alari, still the best in the world no doubt, and when he and Quartz got to let loose with their high pick potential heroes, it gave their country a dynamic that nobody else had. Speaking of Quartz, this young man is building up a special career. The hype the last few years has constantly been a talking point. We didn't get to see him much in the Pro-Am, which was a disappointment, but here on the big stage, with a chance to captivate the hearts of many and prove all of his believers right, he was for real. Quite easily one of the best hit scans, if not the best. Much like Vestola and his teammate Majed, he was easily one of the MVP frontrunners of this event. Brilliance all tournament. And backing these guys up, you have Yubi, the model of consistency, and KSA, the OG of the Saudi Arabian scene. This guy, who initially was put on the map when joining Vancouver a few years ago, is now a World Cup champion. Imagine going from that crappy Vancouver team to this. He truly was one of the elite tank players of this event. All in all, KSA's well-rounded team and quick growth within the scene were able to help them triumph over top-tier countries in a version of the game that boasts more talent than ever. It's a shocking underdog story, but also one of the most impressive World Cup runs to date. And they won this fair and square. No Pharah Echo cheese like on Twisted Minds. They tried their hand at the meta picks, and they grinded at it, and they were better than everybody else. Love or hate them, they earned this, and absolutely nobody can take that away. Congrats to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia on winning the gold. To shift the perspective to more of a general overview, the result of the World Cup could signal an upcoming change of the guard. Other regions have not only caught up to Asia, but they might be in a position to be more relevant in the years to come. Not just from a skill perspective, but also because Saudi and EU Overwatch genuinely might be the future. Perhaps we can ponder on that in a different day though. For now, some concluding thoughts on the World Cup. For starters, many countries and players really showed out. They embodied the very spirit of this event. It's where many people and countries have made a name for themselves in the past, and 2023 truly was no different. Saudi Arabia, Finland, Spain, Thailand, Japan, and so many more. As for the standout players, I mean, there's too many to count. The Spain support line, Gushue, Quartz, Majed, Vestola, Cloud, Sauna, and so many more. And this year, there was no World Cup MVP. Why? I'm not too sure. But if I were to give one out to anybody, I'd go with Vestola. He was the heart and soul behind Finland. His team didn't win the gold, but that's not what World Cup MVP is about. It's about who stood out to the fans. And for me, Vestola definitely left a long-lasting impression. This dude outclassed Hanbin. Enough said there. Although, I'd say Quartz, Majed, and Gushue are also good shoutouts. And as we wrap up, I wanted to express how amazing this World Cup was. Not only for bringing back this fan-favorite event, but also for how entertaining it was. It maybe wasn't my favorite one that I've ever seen, but it's objectively the best World Cup ever. Having World Cup back after all of these years felt like a dream. I literally never thought I'd see the day where this event came back. It's the thing that got me into professional Overwatch. The World Cup was a wild success, and I hope that we get more for years to come. Let me know your favorite part of this World Cup down in the comments, and if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe for future Overwatch esports content. Peace.